Oh hey, I was just doing some light reading, thinking about the socio-political impact of things, and even stuff. Sometimes you go on the internet, you're all excited, you hit up the google.com, you look up Radiohead songs, you look up Pink Floyd songs, you look up Hootie and the Blowfish, and then you look at the comments section, and then you see something from YouTube commenter Anime Feet King 420, who then says, Radiohead sucks and is for children. I only listen to cool music, like the brothers who sometimes kiss. Then you get really insecure and you go, oh, I knew Radiohead was for children. I knew all along. Why was I listening to this stupid ass band? Why can't I be cool? Why can't I know cool bands? I don't know any songs from the brothers who sometimes kiss. How will I ever be cool enough to get a date to the big dance? You won't. But you can always find new music in order to cope with this reality. And music is sick as hell, and there's so much of it out there. You should be looking for it right now. I tried to pick albums that had a bit of a following, but weren't so revered that they were super obvious. Regardless, there's gonna be someone who sees this list and goes, oh, this list is for babies who wear diapers. This list is for babies who go poopy in their diaper. I have not gone poopy in my diaper in months. I'm way cooler than that. This list is not cool enough for me. So here we are, 5 albums to help expand your music taste by getting you to listen to other albums that kind of sound like it but not exactly like it, and more just kind of give you an idea of what a certain sound is like, and it's kind of more accessible than some other albums, but it doesn't mean they're inherently better than the other albums that sound like this album, but you should probably check them out. Cool.
That was good stuff.
I remember being 20, sleeping on a bed with no sheet, no box frame, dropping out of half my classes 10 days into the new semester, every night getting really, really high, playing Dark Souls, and listening to this album for about 10 minutes before realizing I was way too high, and then having an existential nightmare on my sheetless bed for about an hour. Yeah, about everything I did during this time period was extremely embarrassing, except for listening to this album. I discovered this band at the right time in my life, and I wouldn't even say that this is my first or even second favorite album by them, but it's still an amazing album and one that I think is a pretty good entry point into the band. It comes from a genre known as krautrock, and if you don't know what krautrock is, congrats on having talked to a woman before. So a bit of a history lesson. So Germany in the early to mid 1900s. And so as a reaction to all the trauma, guilt, and lack of identity that the fallout of World War II showed to a country like Germany, there was an uptick of musicians in the country that wanted to reject the Western, Anglo-Saxon, American rock and roll that was going on at the time and create something of their own that wasn't like related to what their country had been known for at the time. So they took rock music and they put their own spin on it, instead implementing elements of avant-garde, experimental music, electronic music, psychedelic music, and in my eyes there's no greater contributor to the genre than Can, who is one of my favorite bands of all time, period, point blank. They really hit their stride after their initial lead singer had a complete mental breakdown, and they found a Japanese street singer and decided to get him into the fold of things. It's also kind of interesting because Japan was also dealing with fallout from World War II as well. It has some of the best drumming you'll ever hear in your entire life on these albums. They're still sampled to this day. They're sampled by guys like Kanye West, Tyler the Creator, pretty sure Drake sampled them before, Earl Sweatshirt. And of this 3-album run, this is easily the most mellow of the 3. It's only 4 songs long. They're very meditative, hypnotic, weirdly tropical sounding, which is completely unique to this album in terms of their whole discography. They're one of the best bands in experimental rock, and this is a great place to start with them. And you don't even have to be a complete embarrassing failure of a human like I was at the time to enjoy them. Speaking of embarrassing, let's talk about rap music that was popular on the internet. This is one of my favorite albums of the 2010s. It's fucking awesome. It's got the song Bitch I'm Lugubrious on it, and other songs Who Really Gives a Shit. I once put a song off this album into a playlist for a girl I liked. She didn't really comment on it. Travis Miller, also known as Lil Ugly Mane, is a shockingly talented man. He's done music in black metal, noise, industrial, probably yacht rock, maybe even meatcore, and plenty of other genres, of which you can all hear on his Third Side of the Tape series, which is about, I don't know, like 45 hours long. His last album was full of lo-fi psychedelic rock, which went over very well. It's probably his second most successful album next to this, I would say. He's mostly known for Memphis rap and other forms of experimental underground rap. I promise we are done listing genres now. We are done with that. I just wanted to communicate how large of a scope he was working with at the time. He was definitely influenced by artists like 3 6 Mafia, Tommy Wright III, Gravediggers, and probably like DJ Screw. And this is a pretty good album to lead you into those artists too, I would say. The lyrics are kind of vulgar, absurd, and border on parody at times, but not ever to the point of annoyance. It more just sounds like he was paying homage to a lot of music he grew up with. But the mainstay of this album is definitely the production. It's super dark, sample heavy, hazy, surreal, lo-fi, and even kind of jazzy at times. It's an unbelievably creative sounding album. It basically sounds like what the album cover looks like. This album went on to influence all the SoundCloud rap scene pretty much immediately after it that don't sound a whole lot like it, but the influence is pretty clearly there, and other DIY underground rap music in general. This whole album is entirely produced by himself. I think there's only one feature, which is a very young Denzel Curry. It has a very DIY quality to it. Nothing really sounds like this thing, so please, if you want to be my friend, man, just listen to it. Please. I'm so happy to be finally expressing to a minute public forum my love for Oneohtrix Point Never, or Daniel Lopatin, I don't know. Every single album that this man put out in the 2010s is fucking really good. And it's all an important part of electronic music. They're all absolutely worth your time, but Replica is on another level for sure, both in terms of uniqueness and importance in his discography. And it's probably one of my favorite albums. It probably is my favorite album of the 2010s. It's a departure in some ways from his usual sound, which is more synth-heavy and noisy, at least at the time that this album came out. It's instead extremely sample-heavy. I think it's considered a Plunderphonics album. They're not just any samples. This album is almost entirely comprised of television commercials from like the 1980s and 1990s, the time period that he grew up in. He used specific sounds from these commercials, which he described as harmonically intense, and repurposed them into something wholly unique. There are actually some really great videos you can find of the original samples and how he manipulated them to get them to be what they are in this album. He talked about the process of making this album as looking for old things that are meaningful, and then restructuring and rearranging it to interfere with the original narrative and creating this new poetry, which is a pretty perfect way of describing sample-based music in general, and this album is a perfect example of how far you can go with that idea. This album is repetitive, but more in an intentionally hypnotic, ominous, and surreal way, which is super captivating. There are no albums I can think of that even come close to achieving this like haunting, kind of dreamlike textures that this album manages to pull off, and it's all mostly from sampling. There aren't a lot of synths on this album besides on the song Nasau, which is one of the more beautiful moments on the entire album, the ending of that song. This album is a perfect introduction to sample-based music, Plunderphonics, and even darker ambient music in general, and into the discography of one of the most important electronic music artists ever. I love this album. It might not be super immediate, but give it time and you'll realize it's very worth your time to get into. And I have no idea why the skeleton has pasta for hair. I just don't. Going to make a calculated effort not to make any low-hanging fruit jokes about weed, even though this album cover is literally Satan smoking a bong. Electric Wizard is a metal band that focuses way more on the slower, sludgier side of metal. They fall under the category of doom and stoner metal, which basically means they just play songs very slowly with really thick, distorted guitars, tons of feedback, attempting to create a sense of doom, hence the name. Like every other doom metal band and every metal band in general, they are extremely influenced by Black Sabbath. You can hear it pretty audibly. I mean, their name is a combination of two Black Sabbath songs, Electric Funeral and The Wizard. But what separates Dopethrone from other similar sounding albums to me is the production. It's probably one of my favorite produced metal albums ever. It's super, super loud, super heavy. The guitars are all massively distorted and sound on the fringe of being blown out, but never to the point of it being uncomfortable, more so just engulfing. Most of the songs in this album were created by just everyone in the band getting extremely intoxicated and then just jamming for long periods of time. So it's really remarkable how deliberate this whole album ended up sounding. The riffs on here are all extremely memorable. Songs like Funeralopolis, you could show that song to anybody. You could show it to baby, you could show it to grandma, you could show it to former Vice President Dick Cheney, and they probably would like something from it. It's really, really catchy. It's probably one of the best riffs I've ever heard. It's entirely simple while managing to still stick with you incessantly. But if you're trying to get into more metal music and you've already felt like you kind of heard all the essentials, you want to hear something more psychedelic and loud, this is a perfect place to start. It's dense, it's claustrophobic, it's super memorable, and more importantly, it's just a good time. Listen to it. Weed. Time to talk about jazz. I know so much about jazz. I've been told I'm the smartest jazz man who's ever lived. Yeah, I definitely feel out of my wheelhouse talking about jazz music because I'm already a fucking idiot as it is, and forcing myself to talk about jazz is just gonna make me sound stupider than previously thought possible. It's not that I don't enjoy jazz, I like it quite a bit, but I'm definitely not the most knowledgeable man ever. I like Eric Dolphy a lot. Of course, I like Coltrane, Miles Davis, Ornette Coleman, albums like Headhunters, Saxophone Colossus, all of which I would definitely recommend. I decided to go with Sun Ra instead. This album has a really great balance of avant-garde jazz and jazz fusion. For a Sun Ra album, it's definitely more mellow sounding, but it's also probably his most notable album, and it's not really hard to see why. It still has that cosmic, spacey mood that all of his albums have, but it's more easily digestible and accessible than his more chaotic and experimental albums. I wouldn't say it holds it back in any way at all, not even slightly. But I do think that the mood of this album is far more comfortable than some of his more bizarre albums. It's very nocturnal and dreamlike throughout. It's still got a fairly surreal quality to it, especially on the first song, but it never loses a sense of cohesion either. It's a pretty fantastic album, and definitely one that should get you wanting to check out more of his work. And there you have it. 5 albums to expand your music taste and solidify your virginity. Get you sitting at the cool kids table. Getting you to stop getting pantsed in front of your crush. Get you to turn into the alpha that you always knew you were deep down. Keep listening to music. Keep exploring it. Don't kiss your brother. It's probably wrong and it's weird. Thank you for watching. I love you.